It's my pleasure to introduce Vaughn Schauss from Carrari. Vaughn is the America's Market Manager for Carrari Advanced Interlayers. In his role, he works with architects and specifiers, structural engineers and facade consultants, glass fabricators, and specifications. He works mostly on all laminated glass designs for buildings. And Vaughn began his career working directly with the glass laminators, providing processing and expertise in the lamination process, and he concentrates now on his efforts with structural, security, acoustic, and hurricane applications for laminated glass. Vaughn is very active, and I have a pleasure of working with him in many different committees and organizations in the standards and code area environment, such as ASTM, FGIA, NGA, and several others. Please welcome Vaughn Schauss from Carrari.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Julia, for the great introduction. And welcome to the first session of GPD 2023. You know, when we last were here in GPD 2019, there has been a lot of increase in demand for security glazing. So today we're going to discuss the different security glazing standards that are out there and some test programs that we have done recently. But first we're going to talk about laminated glass. So just as a brief overview, laminated glass is defined as one or more lights of glass bonded together with an interlayer. The benefits of laminated glass is that once it's broken, the interlayer will help to keep all of the shards of glass together. Now there are a variety of interlayers on the market, and today we're just going to talk about two. The first one is polyvinyl butyrol, or PVB. This is a flexible polymer that was invented in the 1930s primarily for the automotive windshield applications, but today plays a major role in the architectural market. It's available in clear, a variety of colors and tints, and can even be formulated for increased acoustic performance or as a stiff interlayer for structural applications. The next one is the ionoplast interlayer. This is a very stiff interlayer that was invented in the 1990s for the hurricane market. But because it's stiff, 100 times stiffer than and 5 times more tear resistant than standard PVB, it's also a great interlayer for the hurricane, structural market, and for security applications. When we talk about security glazing, there are a variety of different areas, applications for security. There's human impact as well as Mother Nature. But today we're just going to talk about the human aspect of security glazing. According to the FBI statistics, from 2018 to 2022, there's been a sharp increase in the number of active shooter incident casualties. You see there's a slight dip in 2020, we all know why, but then after that it started to go back up. And when you look at the data for 2022, more than half of the incidents occurred in some type of building, whether it's a commercial building, educational building, residence, government, or even a religious house of worship. Digging deeper into the data, you'll see that most of the active shooter incidents are over in less than 8 minutes. That's it, 8 minutes. And almost half of them end before the officials even have a chance to respond. So this is the main takeaway for security glazing. We're not trying to prevent the incident, we're trying to increase the amount of time it takes for the person to get through the glazing in order to do the damage. But we're not just talking about active shooters. All over the world, there's examples of vandalism or rioting, any opportunity where someone can just smash the fully tempered glass and walk right in. So this is another area that we need to look at. And no building is safe. This is just a short list of the buildings that are out there. And you may think that it's primarily government buildings, but it's not. It could be residential, it could be pharmacies, banks, it could be retail stores, education. But with all of these different types of buildings and security concerns, how do you know what level or what type of standard to specify for your building? So back in 2020, the National Glass Association worked really hard to help answer this question. And we came out with 2 different technical glass bulletins that looked at the different types of security out there and classified them into 7 different categories. Today we're only going to talk about 6, and that's basic safety glazing, enhanced, forced entry, enhanced forced entry, ballistic protection, and blast resistance. And just so you know, the 7th one is a combination of ballistic and forced entry. So the first is basic safety glazing. This is your standard life safety. We all know that annealed glass, float glass, when it breaks into very large, sharp pieces of glass that present a cutting hazard, a laceration hazard. So taking annealed glass and thermally treating it to fully tempered or laminating it will decrease the probability of it posing as a laceration hazard. And when we look at the testing for basic safety glazing, there are 2 standard types. Both of them are a pendulum impact test. One's from ANSI Z97 and the other is the European EN 12600. As I said, both are a pendulum impact. The main difference is the impactor. For the ANSI Z97, it's a leather punching bag that's filled with 45 grams of lead shot. And for the EN standard, it's a twin pneumatic tire. That's 50 kg. They have similar drop heights and similar classifications. Basically, after impact, as long as there's not an opening large enough for a 3-inch sphere to pass through, then it passes. Moving to the next category is enhanced. This is your standard anti-burglar, smash and grab, opportunistic type of security concern. And when we look at this is where the UL 972 and the EN 356 standard come into play. Both of these are ball drop standards. The UL 972 is a 2.26 kilogram ball, whereas the EN 356 is a 4.11 kilogram, not 411. There's a slight typo. For the UL, there's different drop heights, different temperatures. For the EN, there's also different drop heights as well as the highest level, which has 3 simultaneous balls dropped 3 times. The pass-fail criteria is no penetration of the glass. The next category is forced entry. So this is more of your vandalism, your rioting, looting type of where people have tools. And looking at the standard for this, the first one is ASTM F1233, which has a variety of different types of tools available, and it is a manual attacking of the glass. So you have a group of guys with tools banging on the glass. The tools can be a blunt impact like a sledgehammer, or even thermal stress from a fire extinguisher or even a blowtorch. So it's a very brutal test. There's 2 different types of pass-fail criteria. One's the contraband, so a small, tiny 3 millimeter rod can pass through, or a larger block that can go through. The other example of a forced entry test is your EN 356, the upper levels, 6, 7, and 8. This is your axe test. Basically, it establishes the number of impacts it takes to cut a 400 by 400 millimeter hole in the glass. First, it's impacted with the hammer, and then the hammer switched out to an axe, and it just keeps going and rotating around until you get an entire 400 by 400 millimeter hole cut out. Moving to the next, this is your enhanced forced entry category. So this one is pretty much a brand new category that was developed throughout NGA for school security. So this one is your forced entry, but with a weakening of the glass from ballistics. So it's not ballistic rated, the bullet is allowed to pass through, but because it's shot, it now has a weakening of the glass and then it's impacted. So ASTM F1233 was recently updated to allow for this type of ballistic pre-weakening. And then this next standard, ASTM 3561, is a completely new standard that was developed because of this type of security glazing. And for this ASTM F3561, the glass is shot 10 times in the compass pattern, north, south, east, west, and then 2 in the middle. And then after it's shot with an AR-15, basically a 5.56 NATO full metal jacket round, it's then impacted with a 152 millimeter diameter steel log, basically, that weighs 45 kilograms. It has 8 different drop heights. It must be impacted twice per drop height before you can move on to the next one. So it's a very serious test. And the benefit is it doesn't involve manual impact. So it is more repeatable, more reproducible than the F1233. The next level is ballistic protection. So we're probably all very familiar with this. There's a variety of standards from UL 752, you have your NIJ, of course ASTM has one as well, and then there's the EN standard too. It looks at the different levels of ballistics that are out there and then gives you the shot pattern, the number of bullets for each one. And the last one that we're going to discuss is blast resistant. So for this one, ASTM F1642 is your standard test method. It could be for the glass or the fenestration system altogether. You can either do a laboratory shock tube testing, or, which is more fun, a full-scale arena testing with live... Professor Siebert here is shaking his head. It is more fun. When it comes to specifying, F2912 has different levels, but it's all going to depend on what type of blast that your customer is trying to prevent, whether it's a suitcase bomb, a backpack, or even a car. There's different levels as far as its ability to resist the blast. It could either be a level 1, which the glass doesn't break, or it breaks but stays in place. And then it goes into more of, well, how far does the glass fly into the building and pose a threat to the occupants inside? Okay, so that's a brief overview of these test standards. I know we went really fast. So now let's look at the actual test results. So when it comes to basic life safety, really anything above 0.38 millimeter is going to do pretty well, 38 millimeter interlayer, especially for the lower drop heights. But when you get to the upper drop heights, that's when you need 0.76 millimeter or greater. For the enhanced security level, again, this is your smash and grab, so like your jewelry store display cases or whatever. There's different levels. So for UL 972, your interlayer is 1.52 millimeters or greater for PVB or the ionoplast. For EN 356, since it has so many different levels, it can start off being 0.76 millimeter for the lower level, or go all the way up to 2.28 millimeter, depending on which level that you need. For forced entry, for the EN 356 test, again, it's going to depend on what level you're trying to get to. Remember, this is your axe test. For PVB, a multi-laminate will work pretty well. For the ionoplast, you can easily get by with a single laminate using really thick interlayer, such as 3.04 or 4.56 millimeter. This clock isn't working. Okay. For forced entry, enhanced forced entry, so for F12, 33. For PVB, we have different makeups. So this chart here has with ballistics, without ballistics. So I kind of combined forced entry and enhanced forced entry for this one. But you can see as the interlayer gets thicker, so does the level that you can achieve. So as you're going up to 4.56 or even higher millimeter in your interlayer thickness, then you can start getting to the 1.4 or even the 2.3 mark with the ionoplast. And just so on your right is just a list of the first 11 sequences for this test. As you can see, it's a pretty brutal test where these guys have to hit it with a ball peen hammer or a sledgehammer or freeze it first, and then hit it or attack it with a propane torch. Moving on to the enhanced forced entry for this new test that came out, the ASTM F3561. Again, the theme is as you go thicker with your interlayer, you're able to pass the higher and higher levels. So, 5 minutes. Okay, so when you're looking try to go for the lower level, 1.52 millimeter does well, but when you want to get to the higher level, level 8, well, then you need to be looking at 4.56 or 6.84 millimeter. For ballistic protection, the sky's the limit based on what type of ammunition you're trying to prevent or to stop. So it's typically going to be a multi-layer laminate. If you need spall or no spall, you can add a spall liner towards the interior side. So again, it's just going to be based on what level of ammunition you're going for. For blast resistance, 0.76 millimeter, 1.52 does pretty well for your lower levels. As you start getting up to the bigger glass or your higher blast loads, then you're going to have to go with thicker interlayer, thicker glass, multi-layer, or whatever as well. Okay, so to sum it all up, in this beautiful chart, you could see that as you move towards your right, with the increased level of security glazing, as you need to increase either your laminate thickness, multi-layer laminates, or increase the interlayer thickness as well. So, in conclusion, you can see that laminated glass using PVB or ionoplast can help provide security for life safety, burglary resistant, forced entry, enhanced forced entry, blast, and even ballistic glazing resistance. The interlayer thickness is going to depend on what type of level you're trying to specify for, and the security requirement, that's going to come from your specifier as well, from your building owner or for the architect or wherever. And then the last most important thing is all of these test results were glass only. When it comes to forced entry resistance, you need to test the entire system. So the glass inside the frame, that's the best way to test for these. So with that, thank you very much.